I'm hanging on a wire, and I keep looking at the ground, wondering if I let go, how long would it be until...
Welcome to a brand new edition of the Neon Jazz Interview Series with Kansas City's very own singer Jessica Paige. She is fresh off releasing her 2015 debut album called Sweet Nothings. She grew up on a farm in rural Kansas and has been singing her whole life. Music is in her blood, and Kansas City is her home, and she loves it. And the city is responding very well. She's very busy. For the third time in 8 years, she tried out for American Idol, and she talked about her most recent experience. In early 2016, I caught her live at Helzberg Hall at the Kauffman Center with the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra, led by the great Clint Ashlock, and she mystified the crowd with her singing prowess. She's a local KC gem that the world is discovering, and for good reason. Please get to know Jessica and dig this interview, my friends. So, we're out on the streets of Kansas City. Jessica, thank you for taking some time to talk to me on Jazz. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So, I'm going to go ahead and start off. I know, based on your bio on your website, you're very busy. So, Give me an idea of what has been going on lately.
Well, so earlier this year I was a contestant on American Idol, and that kind of took up all of January and a lot of February for me. As well as earlier this year I released my first album, or last year I released my full-length album, and have been doing shows around Kansas City promoting it, and playing at the Kauffman Center with the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra a week ago, showcasing at Folk Alliance International. As a singer-songwriter, it was just it's been a really great couple of months for me. Yeah.
So the big thing is releasing the album. That's obviously a huge deal. Talk to me a little bit about how this album came about and what the afterglow of the album has been.
The album was really kind of it like chronicles the evolution and dissolution of a relationship, and that's, I mean, so many songwriters do that, right? We write about love and falling out of love, and this is on my own, personal perspective on it, and I put in a lot of my own philosophies on relationships and caring about people, and I started the process of making the album like 3.5 years ago, and then the actual recording I started like 2.5 years ago, and was supposed to release it in the fall of 2014, but in the summer of 2014 I got a really bad concussion and was unable to really function and work in the way necessary to release an album and then promote it. So I had to wait and release it in the summer of 2015 instead. So
what's been the response?
Oh, it's been great. It was listed in like the top 10 for KCUR here in Kansas City of 2015 for Kansas City releases. It was in the Kansas City Star and has gotten some accolades on different blogs and things online. People are responding really well, and the more people hear the music, the more people come out to shows and appreciate the music that we're making, which is really cool.
Right on. So let's go back to the beginnings here of your life. You grew up on a farm in Kansas. So what was it about your childhood and growing up that lent to this love of music and singing that you have?
Well, I was always running around and singing songs. I was always making up songs. And there's videos of me when I was a little kid hamming it up for the camera. Me and my brother, actually. My grandma, I spent a lot of time with, whom I ended up taking care of for 5 years in Manhattan before I was able to do music full time. She had a piano in her home, and I would spend a lot of time with her, and I would just like plunk around on it and come up with my own little ditties. And then growing up in a small community, I had the opportunity to be a part of community theater, and I had a little bit of talent in those people really supported me in pursuing what I was really loving to do in a way that I think is pretty unique. I don't think everybody gets told that they should follow their dreams, especially in artistic fields, Everyone's like, oh, be practical, go do a more solid life path. And I was very fortunate in never being discouraged in doing the thing that I feel like is my calling and pursuing it.
So the one thing, you learned to play chords on the piano. How instrumental was that for your music brain at that age to get you to a point where you understand octaves and singing, and how big was that for you?
Piano was really, I had a lot of understanding of music just because I was so interested in it.
Right.
So I paid a lot of attention in choir and band to like how music worked, and I always wanted to write songs.
Right.
So learning chords on piano really facilitated my songwriting. So I could learn the chord structure that was laying behind all of the melodies that I was making up. And then being able to accompany myself and finally start performing. I mean, learning an instrument was like, you're an artist with a brush, but you need the colors, right?
Right.
So it was just absolutely critical in being able to continue as a songwriter. And learning to play guitar, learning to play piano, each instrument has its own personality, and it brings out such different songwriting that, I mean, you just get inspired by whatever instrument you're working with.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I always remember an interview with Mingus, and he said he always had a piano around. No matter where he was at, he had to bang it out to make sure that it was going to make sense for him, which is interesting. And a lot of musicians say that. They could be totally steeped in the bass or the guitar, and they're like, I had to have a piano around. And if I didn't know what I was doing.
Well,
So
I think you need to have a lot of different influences in what you're doing, which is why you listen to different kinds of music. It's why you don't get into one thing and only that one thing. I mean, you want to try for excellence in whatever you've chosen as your like main focus.
Sure.
But your main focus will like be so much more enhanced by allowing other influences. I would now say that guitar is my primary instrument.
Right.
But my songwriting on guitar is better when I'm also using piano.
Sure.
You know.
Sure. So speaking of having a wide palette of things that you listen to, was there an album growing up that just totally blew your doors down?
Wow. So I couldn't say a single album, but I remember being in high school and I started singing jazz and a jazz ensemble for my school. And I was introduced to blues.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I grew up singing country music mainly. Like I learned to sing to Martina McBride albums in my bathroom.
Sure.
You know? But when I heard that music, it resonated and it just felt kind of like home, you know?
Right.
It was like finding that piano for my songwriting. I appreciated the soul so much, and a way that I felt like country music, they have their own thing, but to me, I was intellectually stimulated by jazz and blues.
Right.
And as an artist, I liked it a lot more.
Right. So let me ask you this. When you were growing up, was it always music? Was it always singing? Or did you have other dreams that you wanted to go after?
I think maybe in 8th grade I talked about being a marine biologist.
Yeah.
That's hilarious because I was in Kansas, right? Like, I'd never even swam in the ocean.
Right.
Like, this grand fantasy. But no, that music was always my thing. I remember bouncing on my bed in like 1st or 2nd grade with my friend, and she was like, I'm going to be a soccer player. And I was like, I'm going to be a singer, you know? And unwavering, like just always. I started doing performances when I was in like 2nd grade.
Right.
So, and I just stuck with it because I loved it so much.
Right.
I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the one thing that you talk about a lot on your website, and it's very evident you love to travel.
Yeah.
What is it about going to another place and presenting your music to different people? What is that? I mean, there's one aspect of travel, and there's also another aspect of getting out of your hometown and going somewhere else. What's that like for you?
There's a couple of different things about travel that's really important. Connecting with other people. Like, music is about connecting with people. Like, I can perform for myself, but I am writing songs to try and connect my human experience with another person.
Right.
And it feels like a responsibility to the music to play for other people.
Yeah.
I think music can be cathartic for people, and if one of like my songs can make another person stay better or help them through an experience that they're having, then that is amazing, and I want to do that.
Right.
But also going different places, learning other people's stories, learning how other people are coping with life, and it's like, again, having more instruments. It's more tools in your toolbox to make you a better musician.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we're supposed to be writing songs about the human experience, you can't live in your own little bubble. You have to go and have experiences.
Right.
And sometimes they're hard and sometimes they're easy, but like, you have to open yourself up to the world and take all of it in and to process it, to put it into music, to articulate it coherently for another person to listen to it and translate it into their own language, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
And that leads into my next question. You've talked about how instrumental your grandmother was. You took care of her. And I'm sure when someone has decades of experience over you on this planet, it has to, by osmosis and by her talking to you, have an impact. What was it that she told you that made you say, I'm doing this, or this is how I'm going to live?
So my grandma grew up, she was valedictorian of her class. She was super savvy and a strong woman who didn't come from money at all. Like she made everything for herself, and she didn't have an easy existence. If there's anything that she taught me that has been so critical in doing what I'm doing, it's grit. Like, you have to have grit and determination and persistence in the things that you're doing, and work ethic. You know, what you want in life isn't going to come to you. You have to go and get it yourself. If you want success, like, you have to chase it down and fail over and over and over again before you're going to get the thing that you want. And that, to me, is invaluable. Like, if I came from a home that had been, my parents were entrepreneurs as well, and so I kind of grew up around people who believed in making something for themselves, and that is absolutely instrumental in who I am and why I can do music. Because I'm not afraid of failing. I'm more afraid of not getting on the boat than standing on the shore watching it sail away. You know.
Absolutely.
You know, Mark Twain said that he wasn't, how did he put it? He wasn't ashamed of what he did. He would have been really upset at the end of his life if he didn't at least try to do it. And there's something to be said about that.
Absolutely.
You know, so, God, did everything that guy say have to be so profound? So, one thing I wanted to ask you about, American Idol, that had to be a lot of pressure, and that had to really make you grow in leaps and bounds, kind of in a presidential 4-year window kind of thing. Was that a big deal?
Idol is such an interesting bag, because you go into it wondering how it's going to be challenging you as a musician, how it's going to challenge you as a person and a performer. And I had done Idol when I was younger. I was like 19 and 20, and going back now that I'm 27 was so much better. And so much more peaceful, because I was able to enjoy the experience for what it was. And truthfully, American Idol's like boot camp for musicians. It's intense. You're getting maybe 4 hours of sleep. You are eating inconsistently. You're stuck in a room with like 150 other musicians for 6 hours while you're waiting to audition. And the nerves are just insane, right? Man. And I think everyone feeds off of each other's energy in that kind of a situation. And to be able to be kind of like the older mentor to some of the younger contestants and be like, guys, it's totally going to be fine. Like, you're a musician. You have made it this far. You are good at what you do. You don't need to question that. All you need to do is go on stage and do the thing that you know you're good at. And don't let the show or the pressure or the lights undermine the confidence that you inherently have at what you're doing, because you have worked so hard to have gotten to this level that you deserve to be here. So go up on the stage and show them that.
That's cool. That's very cool. So your music palette is wide and varied, but I'm going to talk, kind of since we're on a jazz angle with the show, ask you about, you were with Clint Ashlock. You had an amazing performance. I can say, as someone in the crowd, I was blown away by your singing, and the crowd obviously loved it. What was that like? What's it like to switch from jazz to blues and the different genres? How does that work in your brain?
It's so much fun. It's getting to go on stage and sing with an amazing band, and Clint's arrangements were tremendous. You know, voice is my main instrument. It's what I've been doing the longest. It's what I'm strongest and most confident at.
Yeah.
So to be able to go on stage and just sing, and these songs that I love, like I love all of those songs so much. Blackbird, Valerie, and With a Little Help from My Friends are just amazing. So to me, it was like a perfect storm to create the most enjoyable musical experience possible for me as a performer.
Yeah.
But it's going from genre to genre is very stimulating because I like variety. I like trying new things. I like challenging myself. I like having to hear music differently.
Right.
I think it makes me a smarter musician to challenge myself in that way.
Right.
Sometimes I'll practice singing arias. Sometimes I'll practice singing rock. Sometimes I'll practice singing country. Sometimes I'll, you know, I think that maintaining flexibility really just makes you a better musician overall, at least for me vocally.
Absolutely.
And I like being able to draw from different influences in my writing.
Yeah.
So going to sing jazz where my own music is maybe a little more pop and soul, like, but it still has those influences in it.
Right.
You know, and very much in my writing.
Right.
It's there. So it's the best situation for me to be able to perform with an organization like the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra on an amazing stage like the Kauffman, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what always strikes me about the realm of jazz singing is that it's so full of soul, and I think that's transcendent through all of the lineages of music. If you have soul, it's going to come out and it's going to transcend genre.
Let's talk about Billie Holiday for a second. Like, I think in mainstream music, vocalists are so. This is my own personal problem with singers. Is we sing our ego instead of singing to the song. Right. And when you listen to jazz, Ella Fitzgerald can do vocal gymnastics all day long, but she won't.
Right.
She will sing what's appropriate for the song. Yeah. And you have to know when to lay out and when to sing softly, when to belt, when to be soft, when to do a run, when not to do a run. And jazz and blues so much know when to lay back and to just sing the lyric and deliver it so beautifully that it just hits you straight in the face, you know? Yeah. And that is like profound to me, that how beautiful it can be in its simplicity and elegant in its complexity.
Absolutely.
So that jazz and blues, man, just killing.
That's a beautiful way of putting it. So why did you pick Kansas City? You could have gone anywhere in the country. Why here?
So I looked at moving to New York and Nashville before, and while I was looking at Kansas City, I grew up in the Manhattan, Kansas area, which is 2 hours down the road, and my family is still in the area, which was a strong factor in being here. But also, Kansas City's music scene wants you to succeed.
Yeah.
And Kansas City wants to cheer you on. New York is like, you can make it if you against all odds, right?
Yeah.
And and it's oversaturated. Same with Nashville. It's just so big. Yeah. There's this, coming from a really small community, Kansas City feels like a very large, small community. Mm-hmm. And I think to succeed as an artist and have a career, have a lifelong career, you have to be a part of a community. Right. And you have to be a part of a community that wants to be supporting to you. I think it's evident in Sporting KC, in the Royals, and the Chiefs. Kansas City is a fantastic town, and people are kind here. Living here is great. The city itself is beautiful. Yep. There's just so much going on for Kansas City. Why would I go be broke and uncomfortable working 3 jobs to play, some kind of mediocre shows in New York City when I can be playing with the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra at the Kauffman to a great crowd that wants me to do well, That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I was going to ask you what the best thing about Kansas City is, but I think you said about 10 things there. So let me ask you this. We've kind of touched on it. 71, go down here to this church, take a left. You're going to run right into it. You can't miss it. All right, brother.
That's what I'm talking about. That's
right.
What I'm talking
That's it. Go Royals! So we've kind of touched a little bit on, some of the people that have been influential, but who would you consider jazz, blues, musical heroes for you?
Oh, well, Janis Joplin is huge. She's amazing. Nora Jones, like, she was great. I grew up singing to Martina McBride.
Yeah.
Like, Ella Fitzgerald, man, I remember my first Ella, like, I was learning to scat, and my high school music teacher was like, go just buy her album and like sing her scats, and that is how you can learn to scat.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Like, she's just incredible. There's actually a lot of male performers that I think of as far as songwriting is concerned. I love, okay, well, this isn't a guy, but Brandi Carlile, her songwriting is great, and her vocal delivery is raw and beautiful, and I really appreciate that. I think Amos Lee, Ray LaMontagne, as far as people who are performing right now, their songwriting lyrics are so good. But if I were to pick like my top 3 as far as icons in music for me, would probably be Janis Joplin, Billie Holiday, Brandi Carlile.
Right on.
Yeah.
Cool. Every time I hear Janis's name, I don't know what documentary I saw, but I always see the big thing, the pride and joy of McAllister, Texas. It's just always right there in lights. And I wonder what else is going on in McAllister sometimes. But let me ask you this. Let me ramp this up a little bit. And this came because of 18 and Vine and the lore Kansas City has had. If you could go back in time, I would always love to be a fly on the wall during the Pendergast years here. I mean, to jump from joint to joint, see swing happen.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, right?
So if you could go back, would it be Janis? Who would you want to go see, get in the DeLorean and go there? Who are you going to see, and where are you going to go?
If I were to jump into the DeLorean, where would I? God, it's such a, like, they're so hard to choose.
You can choose a few. I don't want to, because it always gets taxing when it's one. So it's a few.
Man, Janis though, like, let's go to Woodstock, baby. Come on, send me there. I want to just listen to all of them.
Yeah.
Like, I just connect so much with the 60s and 70s. I think because of the rock and the soul that was happening then. Just give me a ticket to Woodstock and let me hang out for a week, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. Your career's taking off. Things are happening. Let's say 10 years from now we talk and I say, what's up? What are you going to want to tell me happened?
Oh, man. For me, and the things that I want for my career, I always want to work with integrity and to stay true to myself artistically. And I think what I would like is to have created a really solid following of people who love the music that I'm making and want to see the growth in writing that will happen for the rest of my life.
Right.
I think that the music industry really makes you feel like you're, at least as a female performer, you don't have that long to have a career in music, especially as a performer. And there are plenty of artists to show that that isn't true. Right. But that's what it would have you believe. And so, you know, I want to be Stevie Nicks up on stage when I'm 60 performing to people who have followed my career because they believe in the messages that I'm writing about. Right. And I'm doing shows with musicians who inspire me, who are playing music from their soul, you know, which is what happened at the Kauffman, and that's what makes it magical, you know. I want to do 150 more Kauffman shows a year, you know, and be touring and just performing for everybody who would like to hear my music. You know, I was thinking about Marilyn May when I was thinking about Kansas City, and look how long she's been around. She's still going strong. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's a success story. So this is my final question. Okay. Everybody in your life has a version of who you are. Your family, your friends, she does. Yeah. People that know you. But who do you think you are? I mean, I think I'm all of those people. I think a human is a very complex thing. A large part of me is always that really simple farm girl who just like runs around singing songs. It's very innocent and simple. I'm very much a learner and an observer and wanderer. I use that term a lot because to me a wanderer is somebody who is moving through life with their eyes open, and that to me is a huge part of who I am. I always want to be learning and observing and growing. And I think the people who are closest to me I use the term poking a lot, but I like to poke on myself and other people in life and to try and eke as much knowledge out of it as possible.
Right.
So I think that kind of a philosopher type country child.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. I love the Wanderer quote. I'm so glad the cars didn't go by when you said that. Jessica, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is fun. It's a nice day to be
Yes.
outside in Kansas City.
Yes, it's perfect.
Having coffee,
It's perfect.
talking about music.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest singers and players in New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that music and jazz. And thanks to Jessica for her story, her wisdom, and making Kansas City a much cooler place. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store or visit theneonjazz.blogspot.com for all things Neon Jazz. Until next time, enjoy the music, my friends.
I'm learning that this way is the harder way.
Neon Jazz.